Is Jessica Sublett. She's the ERE care coordinator for Mark Twain Behavioral Health. And you guys wanted to come in and talk about suicide prevention, mental illness. September is Suicide Prevention Month. So what can you tell us about things people need to watch for?
Well, suicide obviously is not a very glamorous topic that we like to talk about, but it has actually become a very necessary topic to talk about because it's quite the public health issue that we have going on nationally, internationally, and locally. So, you know, as far as suicide goes, numbers are always astounding. We are at a 30-year high for numbers in suicide. So, you know, it's really time to pay close attention to what we have going on in our society in this regard. 1 in 4 people actually are going to have some sort of mental health condition in any given year. So when you look at that, you're talking 25% of the population.
25%.
That's huge. As far as suicide numbers go, suicide is the -- 2 leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 34. And it's the -- 4 leading cause of death for ages 34 to 54. So, you know, it ranks pretty high up there in people taking their own lives. And so it becomes quite a serious issue.
How do you go about erasing the stigma that is mental illness? We've talked, and we did a special piece back in April. You can catch it online now at KHQA.com called Shattering the Silence. And it was about shattering the silence, the stigma of suicide and mental illness. But when you talk about things like you wear glasses, so clearly you have a problem seeing, so you went and got that fixed by an optometrist. If you are diagnosed with cancer, you go see an oncologist. If you have a mental health disorder, there's just such a stigma that people think you're crazy. How do you get over that speed bump?
Right. And stigma is a big obstacle that we have had from, you know, years past. We are better about it because we are talking about it more. We are more open about it. Generationally speaking, our generation is much more open than, you know, people from years past. And so, you know, just being able to be aware and be open about the things that are going on in our lives, that is one way, just to be open and to be accepting that people are struggling with different kinds of issues. What you look for too is, you know, verbal cues from people. You know, people are going to say sometimes directly, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm having thoughts of killing myself. But you're not always going to see that very direct kind of clue. So you can sometimes look for the indirect clues, such as, you know, things would be better off if I weren't here, or I can't handle this anymore, I can't take this anymore. You can see behavioral cues from people, such as big changes in mood, for example, or a relapse on some sort of substance use that maybe they've been sober for a long time but have started using again. So you sometimes just can see these subtle changes in people, but they're big changes.
They're huge.
They are. And so, you know, just as a community and as family members, taking care of each other is the way I like to look at this, because sometimes people think that only the experts can diagnose, and, you know, of course only the experts can actually diagnose, but experts aren't the only ones who can stop a suicide. We just need to be more aware.
And real quickly, if you see a friend, a loved one experience some of these or say these things, you see a change in their demeanor, what do you do? Do you need to call 911? Do you have a conversation with that person?
The conversation needs to happen, and the conversation needs to happen in a direct manner. A lot of times people will avoid or dance around the subject, but the reality is the best way you're going to know if someone's suicidal, if you're concerned about that, is to ask. Just flat out ask. Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself?
Start the conversation.
Start the conversation, because a lot of times people will think that that will just make the situation worse, or that it'll make the person angry or defensive, but the reality is it actually, if someone is actually feeling that way, can lower the anxiety of that person and kind of give a relief that, okay, somebody started this conversation with me. And it can also lower the risk of them being impulsive as far as doing something to themselves.
And it's a one-time thing. Jessica, we're out of time, and I wish we could talk for several minutes, because I think this is an issue that needs to be faced. So this was sponsored by Mark Twain Behavioral Health. And if you have questions, again, if you're having those thoughts, I direct you to KHQA.com, Shattering the Silence. At least that's a place to learn a bit more information and reach out for help.